Can't hide our voice, we sing too much. Can't hide reality, it's not yours to hide. Light breaking, we are taking, this is our time. Just breathe, this will be a hard fight. The truth cash out in the night.
Hey, Johnny.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. That's no good.
Uh-oh. Hey, Les, in the backstage, raise your thumb if
Give
you can
me,
hear me.
give me a second.
Okay. It must be on your end because Les can hear me in backstage. So, all right. So while you're doing that, talk a little bit. Can you hear me now? You want to go out and come back in?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
I can't go out and come back in because I'm the host.
If you
As
can hear
far as
me, it's probably not on my end.
Hey, Lenny, I see you in the chat room. Give us 1 second. We're going to try to figure this out.
See if anybody's in the chat and see if they can hear either one of us. Mr. Athos, can you hear me or Richard? You can hear
He
both
says
of us.
Yep.
That's so weird.
You can't hear me. I hear everything.
I don't know, man. I don't know why in the world I wouldn't be able to hear you guys.
Yeah. I don't know.
All right, well, you can hear me. I'm gonna leave and come back out again.
Yep. That's a message I just sent you. Try to leave and come back in. So we'll get going here. It's good to see Lenny. We were just talking about you, Lenny. Matter of fact, Johnny, he's going to bring you up for a moment. He wants to, I don't know. And then we've got 3 Fork Creek Outdoors. Good to see you, man. Yeah, we are using hand signals, buddy. Oh, Seminole War. Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you again. Man, it's been a hectic time. Beautiful weather finally in Florida. We're out of the cold fronts, and it's been pretty comfortable getting out of the upper 20s and 30s and stuff like that. So the last few days, it's been in the 60s as the overnight low. So it's been really comfortable at work. I really enjoyed it. And the great thing about where I work is I have really an I mean, I get the entire sky without anything blocking my view because I'm way out in the middle of nowhere, and I've been out there for over a month, and I've seen at least 5 rocket launches, which is really cool. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yep. So it wasn't on our end.
No idea.
But it was really cool to watch rocket launches and stuff like that from where I work. It's pretty neat. I shot some video. I haven't done anything with it yet, but while I'm at work, I use a lot of my equipment like night vision and thermal and stuff like that because, I'm covering about 3,500 acres, and so I'm on alert of anybody that's not supposed to be out there and stuff like that. And I got a video of something coming out of the tree line that's pretty tall because the tree line is about 10 feet. I want to say about 10 to 12 feet tall. Okay, And this thing is only from, and I'm looking at it from at least 500 yards away, and it's only a couple feet shorter than the trees. You know, but as soon as
What did it look like?
well, from that distance, because I'm running a night vision, so it's either going to be white or black, and I have it running white. It's it's a tall white. It's everything's dark, and then this thing, and because I'm sitting there panning, and this thing comes out, and it's just standing there at the tree line. That's it, and it's tall, and it's all you see is white. I don't see appendages or anything like that.
Did you get it
And
on video?
oh yeah, I videoed it. I'm running my Seymour 200, and so luckily I hit record. But it's really out there at the beginning of the tree line from where I'm at. I want to say 500 yards, but it could be even further. But luckily with the Seymour 200, it zooms. It can see 1,600 and something feet away. You know what I mean? So it's really good. And it was a full moon, so it was clear. I mean, it was easy to use night vision and stuff when you got the moon helping you out. So, but
Well, you gotta send me that video. I'd like to see that.
yeah, I'm going to because it's still in the camera. It's on the SD card. I haven't taken it out yet, so once I do, I'll probably do it this weekend when I get more time because I'm sleeping during the week. And then I'll try to snip it down to something smaller, more palatable because I watched the thing for a while. And then it looks like it's moving, but I can't really tell. But it could be, the camera itself, the pixelation of the camera. But it's very interesting. I scanned the whole area. There was nothing else, and that was so. I left. I had to go do check some other areas. When I came back, it wasn't there. I couldn't find it. So, but whatever it is, I'm just going by the trees, and the trees are at least a minimum of 10 feet tall, and this thing was just short of the 10 feet. I want to say around 8 or something like that, whatever it is. We do have bears in the area, and stuff like that. So I'll send it to you because you're one of the people I send stuff to give me your opinion. But I'll send it to you. So another great thing was boop, we got our feed in.
Oh
Which
yeah.
everybody remembers Carl Bryant when Carl was on the show not too long ago, and he was talking about his sightings and that he also collects rocks and stuff like that. And he was in Colorado, and he had come across a footprint, and he dug it up and took it to get it checked, and they said it was a Neanderthal footprint. And you can see the toes and stuff like that. Now, this is a 3D version because he said on the show he would have it 3D printed and sent to me and Johnny. So it's a lot smaller, which thankfully I can put it places without it taking up a lot of room. But pretty cool. I thought that was pretty cool, And you can see the toes, ball of the foot, No comments. Maybe he should have picked a different color than brown, so no comments.
Hey, speaking of gifts, so everybody knows I've been ragging Lenny for several months now because he gave you something and didn't give me something, and I got jealous. So I've been constantly making him feel bad every single podcast. Well, it worked. Look at me. I got my own cup. It says compliments of Aethys Law Firm. And he put Johnny Two Bears, Sasquatch Encounter Brigade. Cross the line. It's Fallujah, which is awesome that he picked up on that. Lenny's, he is of the opinion, from what I gather, that these things are violent and we should be very, very careful when dealing with them. And he's brought that up before. And I've always said, they've never done anything violent around here. Got a little aggressive at the very beginning, but not much. They've never hurt me or the animals or, done anything crazy. But if they ever did, that I would turn my property into Fallujah, that I wouldn't have any problems with. I live out in the woods. if they cross the line, now we'll go full Mad Max, right? Anyway, so he picked up on that and put that on the cover. I thought that was pretty awesome. And last but not least, a good buddy Hank, which you've met,
Oh
he
yeah,
sent
we like
me.
Hank.
All right, yeah, we now have matching Bigfoot figurines. So
So now do I
yeah,
have to bust Hank's balls because he didn't send me something?
apparently it works. So it is.
I
I
think I
put.
sent I think I sent Hank a shirt. I think he might have one of my shirts.
Yeah, he was. The first thing he told me whenever he gave it to me was like, "Man, you got to be real careful. This thing's super thin." And I'm like, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, it breaks real easy." And he was telling me the story of he came home from work and the Bigfoot was gone. And he looked at his wife and said, uh, "Where's the Bigfoot?" Apparently, it just fell off the mantle and broke into a million pieces. So,
Oh wow.
anyway, I just want to say thank you to everybody for all the gifts. Lenny, I'm actually working myself on uh, getting everybody back something. So, see how that
Pork
turns
and
out.
pork and beans in the house. Yeah, I gotta honestly say, Lenny, I use that mug every single evening, every night.
Oh, yeah.
Every night. That's my coffee drinking mug right there. That's what I use. It's a really
And
good
it's not,
sturdy mug. It doesn't leak. That's why I like it. It doesn't leak.
it is not the Timu version. This is a high dollar Yeti cup with a screw on lid. It doesn't get
Yes.
much better than this with a
Nope.
handle.
It's got a magnetic opening at the
Yes.
top, and I love it. And I it's become my primary. And I have some mugs I really like a lot. I got one called the Beast, and then I got another one that's a little bit smaller that I like. And I always used the Beast. Always used it until I got this one, and I like it so much better. Because the
Oh,
Beast
yeah.
one's good, but it doesn't shut at the top. As far as it, if you flip it upside down, it would drip. Where
Yeah.
this one absolutely does not. You know.
Well, let's bring our guest on so we don't waste his time
Yep. So
talking
we've got
about figurines
if
and cups.
if anybody's been around long enough and stuff like that, um, the you've probably come across something with Les in it. He does a lot of stuff with. He's been on Small Town Monsters, which I found interesting. Since we just had Alex on just recently, so that's really cool. Les is out of West Virginia. Does a lot of research and stuff like that. So without further ado, let's bring Les on.
How you doing,
Hey,
fellas?
how's it going, Les?
Good,
Pretty
Give
Les.
you a
good.
little
Good to
applause
meet you,
here.
man.
Nice to meet you both. Get that water out of the way here.
Are you? Were
So,
you? Did you try to hit the applause button and it didn't work? Was that what just
uh,
happened, Richard?
yes, I was.
I'll do it. Yay!
I heard it. I mean, I heard it both times.
Yeah, I don't know if the chat room heard it or not. Did anybody hear the applause in the chat room? Trying to get better at the board here and stuff like that. So just playing around.
Yeah, yeah. So, Les, tell us about yourself, man.
we can- I'm a West Virginia native, born and raised here, lived here all my life. Um Truck driver, been truck driver for 34 years this year. I got 4 kids, 2 grandkids. Um, enjoy the outdoors, try to get out as much as I possibly can. Not a big hunter. I've never been a big hunter. I'd like to fish, but I just never was a big hunter. Um, but I like to get out and hike and camp and things like that. So basically, that's just it in a nutshell.
So, what got you involved in all this?
Well, it's kind of a different story than what most people would tell you. Most people you ask that question and they're going to say either they had a sighting, they watched In Search of, the Patterson Gimlin film, or something like that. Mine was it was completely different for me. I really didn't have much of an interest in uh, Bigfoot growing up or cryptids. I was I was more the paranormal guy. I liked ghosts and stuff like that, and that all stemmed from an experience, I guess you'd say, that I had when I was like 8 years old. We lived in a house. Well, first off, I'll say we moved around a lot when I was a kid. We would bounce around to different areas, and I later learned that that was mainly because of my dad. Uh, was a Vietnam veteran. Was going through, back then they called shell shock, so he would have issues, and I think the way to relieve some of that was to move. So we moved. We would move to different places, and we when I was 8 years old, we moved into this farmhouse. It was built like in the 18, I think it was the early 1890s, if I'm not mistaken. And I had, as we, from the time we moved in there, I had the weirdest feeling about the house. Just like something strange was in the house, or I was being watched. The typical stuff you hear that could be passed off as as a child's imagination. But things started happening, and the main thing that would happen is my brother and I we shared a room. We had bunk beds, and I would see like across the room, I would see these shadows moving along the wall, and I'd watch them for a little bit, and then get scared, try to scream for my dad, wasn't able to do that. I then would cover my head up. Eventually I'd go to sleep, or I'd look and I wouldn't see him anymore. Well, this happened a few times, and then one night it started to happen, and I actually was watching them, and I looked in the corner, and the other shadows that I was watching were just basically like little blob shadow looking things. And this time I looked in the corner across the room, like diagonal from our bed, and here stood this figure, I guess you say. It had a head, it had shoulders. I could see the arms, I could see the torso part, but from about the waist down, there was just like a solid black. It was just black, like mass or whatever you want to call it. And it would look like it was standing in the corner and look down the wall where these other little shadows were moving. And later I called it the overseer. I don't know why when I was a kid I called it the overseer. And I remember this. There was 3 times that this happened. And there's the little shadows I've seen several times, but the big one I've seen 3 times. And on the 3rd time, I was worried about everything going on. I was like, man, I don't want this to happen again. I can never scream for my dad for some reason. I was just so terrified. Well, I started seeing the shadows one evening, and I looked over, and here's this thing standing in the corner. Well, instead of covering my head up and hiding this time, I actually sat up in bed and scooted back into the corner where our bed, the headboard of the bed was. And when I did that, the thing that's standing in the corner went from watching these other shadows, turned toward me, and within a split second come across the room, ducked underneath the top bunk, leaned in, and was only about 8 to 10 inches from my face. And I can remember seeing there was no features in the face. I could see the head and the shoulders, and it put its hands down on the bed, or I guess you'd call it hands. And I could feel the pressure, whatever it was, push on the bed. And inside that shape was like real extremely black, but it moved around like it was swirling around, like it was smoke inside a glass bottle. And eventually it just turned and went away. It turned and turned to its left, went out through the door that went toward my mom and dad's room, and that was gone. And I never did see it again. We moved like short time after. So instead of, as an 8-year-old kid, instead of being terrified, for some reason I was extremely, I guess, curious. So I started reading stuff, books in the library, little books and stuff. And I'd listen to anybody who had some stories. I'd listen to my grandma or my family, because my grandma always told all kind of little folklore stories and stuff like that. So I got extremely interested in it, and people started to know that I was kind of, into that kind of stuff. So they would tell me things as I got older. Through high school, people would tell me stuff, and I'd talk to them, and I'd look into it, and then go to the local areas where there's supposedly ghosts or, things like that. So as I got older, I got married. My first wife, 24, I believe it was. We were together for 4 years, had a son. We got divorced. And as my son got to be about 10, through those years, he would come over every weekend. But as he, about 10 years old, I asked him, I said, what would you like to do this weekend? Like I did every weekend. And for some reason he goes, I would like to go ghost hunting. And I'm like, okay, cool. And this is like when, like ghost hunters and all that stuff started to, gain traction on TV. So I went out and I bought like the little tape recorder. I bought the little cameras, or the disposable cameras, and we would go to little cemeteries, or we go here and there and just mess around. We did that for several years. He got older. As he was, I think he got to be 15 or 16. We decided we were going to start a small group. We brought in a couple other people, done multiple investigations, private residences, some big locations, some off the wall locations, places that never had any was ever said to be active. We just decided, hey, let's check it out. And again, life gets in the way, I guess you say. A couple of the people in the group decided they had to, leave because they had family issues, or one was moving away. So the group kind of just went to the wayside. But me and my son we always did stuff every so often, but we always talked about stuff. And one day he's like, hey, Dad, he said, what do you think about Bigfoot? I'm like, yeah. I said, it's cool. I mean, I know the Patterson Gimlin film. I know this and that. And I said, I've looked into it a little bit, but I always had, the only cryptid I really had a real fascination with was Loch Ness Monster. So he said, well, I've been listening to podcasts. He started listening to Sasquatch Chronicles and the Confessionals and another one. I can't remember what it is. So I was like, yeah, I start listening to him. So I started listening to him, and that sparked an interest, and we started talking more about it. And in discussion, we agreed that it would be really cool if there was a place on Facebook or online somewhere for West Virginia where people can come and share their stories, whether it was Bigfoot, ghosts, aliens. I didn't care. It didn't matter. Just share their stuff, their encounters. So we started WV Case, or which WV Case stands for WV Cryptids and Strange Encounters. And it was okay, a little bit. We started like I think it was in October. By February, we had like 300 people on there. I thought that was really cool. I'm like pretty excited, because I'm like, wow, that's 300 people that has the same interests as we do. So I shared one story about a hitchhiking ghost in Huntington, West Virginia, and it caught on. It just went nuts. So I went from 300 people in February till the end of March, to somewhere in there, to like 3,000 and some people. And then later on, I shared something about Bigfoot, and again, it jumped up, and I started to get messages from people. They started to contact me through Facebook, or they would send me emails. So it kind of went from like the all encompassing thing, Bigfoot, ghosts, aliens. It kind of turned to like more Bigfoot centric. And I would talk to people online. I'd talk to people on the phone. They'd tell me their stories. They'd ask me questions. And I guess it just bloomed from there. It blossomed. People just wanted to hear more stories about it and share their stories. And I'd share them on my Facebook page. And eventually, or not eventually, then it started to where people was like, can you come to our property? So I would go to the properties and have a look around, kind of investigate, I guess you'd say, not necessarily researching. And then it led into kind of my interest grew. I wanted to see what was out there. I had never seen anything or heard anything, but all the things that people were telling me here in West Virginia and stuff, I don't know. I just had to see if there's anything out there. And so I started going into areas, and majority of the time I'm by myself. And that's basically how it all got started. And Yeah. Met a
Yeah,
lot of
I've
yeah,
been through West Virginia. It's a beautiful state. It's a beautiful state, but it's very steep. There's a lot of incline.
yeah,
But beautiful, beautiful large rivers that run through the valleys of these mountains and stuff. It
mhm,
was a gorgeous drive through. I think what amazed me the most was I was driving, and you pass through these small little towns through the
mhm,
mountains, and I'm like, where do people work? I mean, there's
yeah,
literally there's nothing here. I might see a car dealership on the side of a mountain, occasionally maybe a Walmart, but
yeah.
it wasn't like a city where there's is hustle and bustle and everything's going on. And that was the part that got me. I was like, wonder what people do here for a living, But it was beautiful, beautiful state, just amazing
Well, a,
state.
a, a lot of those little communities were based around coal mines and some logging camps. The town that I live in here is actually called Ida May. It's named after the founder's daughter. I forget what year, but it literally the whole town, all the houses here, the old mine building is still set in the middle of town.
Hmm.
It's fenced in. It's a fenced in property, and it, I can I can count like there's Ida May, there's Mannington, Farmington, Carolina, Fairview, Granttown, and those are all within like 10-mile radius of me. And Worthington, and every one of those towns had their own little coal mine, and
Right.
they were all little coal towns. The house I live in is one of the old coal mine houses. They're in rows. They look like cookie cutter houses. They were the little company houses.
Right.
Then over on the other side of town, there was bigger houses that was called the Boss's Row, and that's pretty common in a lot of these little towns here.
Yeah, it's really funny because I have a close friend of mine that I was stationed with in the military, and on board ship he was a mechanic. He worked down in the holes. He was a mechanic. He was a grease monkey. And when he got out and went back to West Virginia, he became a nurse
Yeah.
because there was nothing else he could do with what he learned, so he became a nurse. So, um, talk about. Let's move into your research and going out and actually now you're interested in Bigfoot and you're going out there specifically looking for that cryptid.
Well, I start out in an area basically doing what everybody should. Looking at the area. Is there something there? You have to have three things for one of these creatures to exist. Food, shelter, and water of some sort. So you definitely want to look at those, and then I start looking into has there been any sightings? I'll look into different areas online, or I'll do some historical research, looking for like the wild man stories and stuff like that. And then just go out and trek, hike around and see what I can find and see what I can listen to, or see if I can hear anything. Um, Basically, yeah, just hanging in the woods, just enjoying doing it. Got like I said, then I started to meet a few people, and we go out together every so often, do camp outs, and have a good time, I guess you'd say.
It is a
So
good time being out in the woods.
Yeah.
tell us about what you have been on Small Town Monsters for. What did they focus on when it came to your story?
Uh, it was just here in West Virginia. They come down here and would do. I've been on a few of them here in West Virginia. I've done a couple in Ohio on the Minerva project they did, the Bigfoot project they did. I did that one, but they would come here, and because I talked to a lot of people and had a lot of stories, and I would get some people that I interviewed, they would talk to them as well. So they don't know. They just had an interest in hearing what a local person had to say, and take them to locations where things supposedly happened, from what people would tell us, and just do like little night investigations, little things like that, um, and just basically get my opinion on some things.
That's pretty cool.
Now, and through your research and all this, and meeting with all these people, you're able to formulate a book, actually a number of books. This is the
Well,
cover of one of them, where
yeah,
you talk about these encounters that people have.
well, what that book is, it's like I tell everybody, it's not a literary masterpiece by any means. Uh, it's really a compilation of some of the reports I've taken in West Virginia. Uh, it the way it come to be is I'm trying to think. It's been 5 or 6 years now, but I helped. Um, I think this will be six. I think. Anyway, helped get the Bigfoot Museum in Sutton, West Virginia started. I donated or loaned anything I had, like the couple casts I had, and stories or in reports and stuff like that. So that got that started. And but this book came from a small folder that they asked me could I put together, or that I actually had together, but they asked me if they could use it at the museum, um, of stories that I had permission to share. And a lot of people would come in and say, "Hey, is that for sale? Is that for sale?" And they're like, "No, it's not for sale. It's a private folder." But then a gentleman from Charleston come in and seen it, and he was the owner of a publishing company, and he asked, he said, would he be interested in putting that in a book? So they contacted me, and he contacted me. We agreed. Um, I wrote for the first part of it, and the rest of the book is just reports that I've taken. They're put together in, I don't know how to say it, a type of way that it shows where it happened, when it happened, uh, the weather stuff, water sources, stuff like that, for the most part. So, like I tell everybody, it's not grammatically correct because these stories are the way the people shared them with me. That's the way they're in the book. That's the way I wanted it. I didn't want it changed. I made sure that I told the publishing company, I don't want those changed. I don't want you to go through like, oh, we're going to take this, word out that might sound a little bit hickish, I guess you'd say, or, like somebody saying holler or up to holler. I didn't want that. That's how we talk, and that's how these people talk to me. And a lot of these people are good, down home, back hill people, backcountry people. It's not city people. A lot of them, and I wanted to give them, those people, the respect, because they came to me and had they respected me enough to share it, or share it to me. And I did not want to disrespect them in any way. And that's basically, like I said, that's how the book come to be. The other two are just like a little West Virginia cryptids with short stories of what the cryptid was in West Virginia. And I did one in Indiana because a friend of mine that did the cover art for the book, he did the artwork for both of those books. We did a West Virginia one. I wrote it. He wanted to do one for Indiana. He did the artwork, and I wrote the one for Indiana. His name's Mark Randall out of Indiana. But that's basically how all those come to be. The other books are not very big. They got a cool artwork and somewhere between 250 and 300 word like description about the area, about the cryptid and stuff like that for each artwork or picture that he put together.
Now you sent me some pictures. Oh, go ahead, Johnny. Go ahead, bud.
Oh, I was just going to ask him, have you had any interesting experiences on these investigations that you've done, whether it's paranormal or with Sasquatch?
Yeah, I can't say that I was telling Richard the other day when we talked on the phone, I had a possible sighting a couple years ago. I can't exactly say for sure. This is during a time I was driving. But other times I've heard things. There was one time, I think it's been 5 years ago now. I went into a location that I go to quite a bit, and I was there a whole day. And my friend Daniel come in the next day early, and then my son and his friend come in later that afternoon. Well, on the way in, my son passed an old cabin and there was a pine tree, a dead pine tree that had fallen. Well, the property owners cut that pine tree up and put it out by the road and said free firewood. So he picks it up, brings it to camp, and he starts trying to split this firewood. And if anybody's ever tried to split pine, old pine, especially dry pine, it's not. I mean, even though it's a softwood, it's not that easy to split, especially when you have an axe. It just was not up to par for splitting wood. So he beat on that firewood and beat on it, and finally split it on. We're sitting there around the fire, and just out of nowhere, we hear this howl. I can describe it kind of like the Ohio howl, but it was a little less high pitched, I guess you'd say. It came from way back over across this marsh, because we was kind of camping along. There's a pine forest, there's a marsh, and then another pine forest, and then you get into laurel bushes. It goes up into the hardwood, and it came from over in that area. So we was like all excited, hoping something would happen again. We got out. We was out in the wood, out in the pine and the marsh and stuff, and had thermal, had parabolic mic. Nothing ever happened. Nothing else happened. So the next day, Daniel had to leave, and I told my son, I was like, I want to go over where I heard the howl come from. He said, all right, we'll get ready. I was like, no. I said, you stay here. I said, because the service is horrible, but he can follow me on my GPS. We had on the phone, the thing we had set up on the phones. I said, that way you can follow me, and if anything happens, you'll know where I'm at. You can get out of here and go, get help. And I said, if you hear me shoot in the air, definitely something's up. So I go over, and I get over to where the howl possibly could have come from. I thought maybe this is the distance, and end up finding this rock stack. It's. I wish I would have sent you the picture of that. But it's.
Is that the one where Small Town Monsters, you tried to find it again and bring them to? Yeah, I remember that. Absolutely, yeah. I remember that.
So I find this rock stack, and the bottom rock is probably a foot thick, probably close to 3 feet across, and the whole rock stack stands probably about 3 feet tall. I mean, and anybody can say, "Oh, a person did it." Yeah, very possible. I mean, I agree with that. But where it's at and how to get to it, and what you would have to do to stack those rocks to carry them in there, it took a lot of work. If it was a person, especially some of the ones that are pretty good size. So I found that, and then I found just off from there, I found where there's a boulder, and it looked like about a soccer ball sized rock had been picked up and bashed on this boulder. So that caught my interest, and I was like, okay, I really want to keep coming back here. And eventually, or after some time, or even before that, I had already taken some reports from there, but there's a historical story there about what they call the Canyon Monster. It was from the 1970s, which is really interesting because it kind of fits in like what we did, what we had happened, I guess. Well, some of it. There was a group of campers, younger guys. I think there's 3 or 4 of them. I can't remember exactly how many. But the one gentleman got up. They're sitting around the fire. The one gentleman got up and went out toward the wood line. Started to get firewood, picking up sticks and stuff. And he's just outside the firelight, and he hears a noise, and then all of a sudden he's being poked, like in the ribs, from the back. He turns around and he sees this thing. This is what the story says. He sees this thing about 8 feet tall, covered in hair, with red eyes. Like they said, it was. I think they used it. They said glowing like balls of or fire hail or something like that. The fire was probably reflecting in the eyes of this thing. But he screamed. The thing turned around, took off, and ran the opposite direction. They decided not to leave. They were too afraid to leave because it would have to be out there in the dark. But they did the next morning find tracks, and as they left, and there was a couple other things happen in that area throughout the years that kind of fits with that description of the animal. So that's one reason why that I went there. And like I said, the whole splitting the firewood, and then we hear the howl. I just thought it was
Right.
pretty cool.
Now you had sent me some pictures.
Yeah.
Let's lead into that so I can
Yeah.
pull those up one at a time because there's roughly 4 pictures. So I
Yeah.
want to be able to look at those, and Johnny would be really interested in looking at these as well. So let's go into that story. How these pictures came across.
2000. Yeah, 2019. October 2019. I got contacted by a gentleman that does a publication here in West Virginia, and he says, "Hey, I was talking to somebody that had it. He knows that I'm into this." And he said, "I was talking to somebody that says they had a Bigfoot sighting and have a picture." I'm like, "Okay." So he got a hold of the gentleman. The gentleman agreed to talk to me. I went and met this gentleman. This is the picture that he took. What happened there is his wife had shot a bear like prior that year, or prior, before fall or whatever it was, right before this. So she shot the bear. They decided, well, wonder if we get another bear to come in. So they started putting food of all sorts. They go to the local store, they buy old produce and whatnot, and they put in a pile. And they had a blind setting of probably, I don't know, 30, 40 feet from this pile, a little camo blind. So the guy's name is Billy Humphreys, and he's a Vietnam veteran, or not Vietnam veteran, I'm sorry. He's a Marine veteran, and he would tell me, he's like, he'd tell me, he said, I'm a veteran. I don't get scared very easy. He said, but when I go to tell you this story, he said, you're going to realize why it scared me to death. So he just told his wife, he said, I'm going to go up to the blind, and he took this little solar light that would kick on, and he put it up behind the blind in the tree. He stuck it up there about as far as he can reach, which I'd say probably about 7 feet off the ground. He's sitting in the blind, and he hears something moving behind, in the woods behind him, and then all of a sudden the light kicks on. Well, he thinks, oh, it's got to be a deer or something, and mind you, he doesn't believe in Bigfoot. That's what he told me the whole time before telling us. He said, I did not believe in it. I thought it was a bunch of crap, basically. And he said, but this light kicks on. He said, I didn't even give it any thought when I realized that something, whatever passed in front of the light, blocked the light out. And this is something that's 7 feet off the ground. So he went on, and he told his wife, he's like, yeah, something feels, he said, I feel odd, something strange. He said, I know, the light come on and stuff. He said, but I feel uncomfortable. So he decided he'd go back to the house. He went back to the house. Well, a short time later, I can't remember how many days or whatever it was, they both went up to the blind, and they're sitting in the blind, and he's got his calls mounted to this board inside this blind. He got them hanging. So he's fiddling with them and putting them in an order, I guess he wanted. And they're waiting to see if the bear shows up. And all of a sudden, his wife goes, oh, my God, there he is. And he goes, what, the bear? And she goes, no, Bigfoot. And he looks up, and he sees this thing. And if you look at the picture that you see there, right dead center, you'll see that white tree that's going in like a 45 or more angle there. And you see the bigger tree right in almost the apex of that. That's supposedly where the head of this thing is, and that's the body of it below that angled tree. That's what he's claiming is the Bigfoot. He said when he took the pic, what he did is he had a little flip phone, and he grabbed it off out of his pocket or out of the pocket in his chair, whichever one it was, and he pulls it up real slow, like he said, and it took almost like what you would consider like a hip shot through the hole in the blind. And he said this thing either smelled it or heard it or, something, or heard them move, because it caught its attention, and it turned away from them, swung its arm around, screamed, and took off running through the woods. And the really interesting thing when I asked him about describing it, he told me what it looked like, and he said that there was one feature or characteristic it had that just stuck out to him. And I was like, "What's that?" And he said, "There's white underneath its eyes. You can see this white hair." And if you look at that picture, if you see where it's supposedly he's calling the head, you'll see like these two parts that come down, almost like a white mustache, but it was under the eyes. So I've talked to him several times. His story's never changed. I've been on his property, did find, I guess you'd say, a track, possible track. I'm not going to declare it is, but a possible track. His story got a lot of attention. It ended up on finding Bigfoot and all kind of stuff. But each time I'd go down there, he'd tell me the story, and you can watch him relive it. But there's a where it has been fiddled. Where the other ones where it's been fiddled with to enhance it. But that's the picture. There should be a full size one there somewhere. I don't know if you can see the little white marks. I'm touching the screen like everybody can see me doing that. But when I went down there to talk to him, I think the third time, his wife, I noticed she was acting strange because I started asking him questions. I was like, "Have you ever had anything else happen here? Was anything, has anything ever like knocked on a house or done anything like that?" And you're like, "Oh, no, nothing. We don't remember hearing anything like that." But I could see her face that she had experienced something else. And all of a sudden, something happened to the chicken coop. And Billy's like, "I gotta go take care of that." He said, he said it was cats or something. We were in the chicken coop. So he ran to the chicken coop real quick. And I looked at her and I said, "He's not here now. Can you tell me what's going on? I tell there's something, you're keeping something, or you have something to tell me, but you don't want to say it in front of him." And she goes, "Well, a year ago in the summer, the year prior," she goes, "I went out." She goes, "It was a nice day." She goes, "I decided to take all the linens." And she goes, "I went out I washed them. I was going to hang them on the clothesline." She goes, I hung them all on the clothesline. She goes, "I went back in the house. There was enough time went by." She goes, "Well, I'm all right. They're dry. So I need to go out and I'll just take them down." She goes out. She's at one end of the clothesline by the T-post. She starts to pull the clothes down or the linens down. And she looks down at the other T-post at the end of the run. And she notices what she thought was coveralls hanging on the T-post. And she's like, "Wait a minute, I didn't wash coveralls." So she moved, and as she moved, like kind of get a better look, this thing moved. And when she did, she dropped the basket. This thing did the same thing as the other one did, because she told me this one was different, or at least she thought it was different because it wasn't the same size as the other one. It was definitely smaller and like not as bulky. But it turned, screamed, and ran down in the same direction as the other one. It was tall enough, she said, that it literally stepped across the 4-foot fence and never jumped and just off running. So I've kept in touch with them. I still do. I stopped by there last year. Billy kind of like, because when this first happened, he was just gung ho. He wanted to know what it was, how, where these things are. And he would just go and go and go. And he got a lot of attention. Well, eventually he didn't like the attention. People just bugged him, just messed with him too much. And so he kind of went off, kind of hid, he kind of just stepped away from it. But I still talk to him. His story's always been the same. And then I actually got to share something with him when I was down there, because I think it was 2 years after, and you have the picture there with the drawing.
I didn't know what that was, so I didn't download it. I do have it though. I can pull it up here in a second. Yeah.
But I'm here at home, and I get a phone call, or I get an email or a message first, and I said, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you. Can you call me? About possible something, just some kind of sighting." He said, "I don't know what it was." So I call this gentleman, and it's kind of funny. His name is Johnny, and I talked to him, And he's like, I found you online. He said, I was doing a search. He said, I don't believe in this stuff. He said, or at least I didn't. And he's like, I need to know what you think. And I'm like, okay. So he starts telling me this story that he's taking his kids to school, and he's driving along. He's on this road, and he asked me, he goes, do you know what kudzu vine is? And I'm like, yeah. I don't know if you all know what kudzu vine is, but it's this invasive vine. It is with leaves like the size of dinner plates. It takes over everything and smothers everything out.
Yeah.
Well, it's all over the place, especially in the southern part of West Virginia. So I'm like, yeah. He said, well, I'm driving up the road with my kids. He said, I see something stick his hands through the kudzu vine, pull the plants back, and stick its head out, and watches us as we go by. And I asked him, I said, can you sketch me something and send it to me? And he did. And this is what he sketched. And then I asked him, because when I looked at this, I was like, do you know who Billy Humphreys is? And he's like, no, I have no idea. I was like, do you know about the Denise, West Virginia sighting? He said, no. He said, I told you I'm not into this stuff. He said, I don't know anything about that. I was like, well, it's pretty, your picture, your sketch has something on it that I find very interesting. And I said, because it kind of validates Billy, and Billy's what kind of validates yours. I said, the collar's a little different. Billy said his was darker brown. I said, but what is under the eyes? He said, well, it was white. There was white collar. And if you look at that, you'll see, like right under, you'll see where it comes down. It looks like a mustache, kinda, and it's white. And I asked him, I said, how far away are you from Denise? He said, I'm only like, I think he said 50 miles maybe. And it happened like 2 years apart. So I just thought it was really cool, two sightings in relatively small area that had something that, had characteristics that really looked like they could be maybe part. I don't think they're the same animal, but maybe it's a trait in maybe a small family group or something. But I thought it was really cool that two people, have something like that, in their sightings.
Well, the daytime sighting I had, it actually had a white strip right here on his chin,
Mm-hmm.
like a white goatee. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, I had that picture. I wasn't sure what it was because you hadn't gone in detail with me, so I was kind of waiting on it. Like, I don't know where this plays, but
well, I wanted to send you a bunch of a few more pictures, but I just haven't had the time. Pictures like the footprints that I found, the castings that I've done, things like that. But yeah, I that Billy's story and Johnny's stories to me are a couple of my favorite, because of that I guess likeness, for both of the animals. I thought it was pretty neat.
Right. Now, being in West Virginia and you're accumulating these stories, what these people are seeing, what would you say is the average height of this creature in West Virginia that
6
you're
to
coming
8.
across?
6 to 8.
And size-wise, what weight-wise or anything like that, what are people estimating?
Oh, it's kind of all over the place, to be honest with you. I mean, it's not, but I'd say probably majority is probably maybe most people say 300 to 400 pound range. Now Billy says the one he's seen was at least 8.5 feet, probably at least 4 feet wide, and probably 1,000 pounds. He said. Other than that, I've never had one or had anybody tell me anything bigger, but they don't seem to be very extremely large.
Well, I'm starting to see that consistency when I talk to people that 6 to 8, somewhere in that range, 7 probably being the average. You know what I mean? Now, as far as the footprints, and you've casted some yourself, what is the common size that you're coming across? Because that's a magical number there that I see a lot. What is the size you're getting in West Virginia?
13 to 15.
See,
for
that's
a
that
big,
magic number.
yeah.
15 seems to be the number that pops up so
Yeah.
much when we talk about castings.
I mean, I've heard people say they found them. I don't know. I just can't believe the numbers they tell you. So I have
Oh
a hard
yeah,
time.
oh
I have
yeah.
a hard
There's
time with it. Yeah.
oh yeah. I've had people claim 36-inch prints.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't buy into that whatsoever at all.
No,
I
me
just
either.
had a guy send me pictures of I want to say it was. I mean, and it's really hard to judge tracks from a picture.
Right.
There's only so
It is.
much you can do. But I mean, they look definitely like big impressions, and they were 22 inches, and he had his foot, right
Yeah.
next to it. I'm like, good God, man, that's if that's what that is a very, very large creature. Now,
Yeah.
with your crossover from the paranormal to the Sasquatch, what's your opinion? You said animal before. What's your opinion on what these creatures are exactly? Do you think they're kind of in between, liminal,
Um,
primate, animal, spiritual?
for me, because I haven't had there's just not been enough there for me to determine anything other than an animal.
Right.
Then one and plus, I'll be honest with you, that's the easiest answer. To try to just figure out other things, you got to dive deep into other areas and some other weird stuff. But that doesn't keep me from listening to the weird stuff.
Oh yeah.
The reason I tell people that I do that, because I've had people like, you're nuts. Why would you listen to that? If it's an animal, it's an animal. The reason I do that, because I feel as an investigator, I'm doing myself as an injustice, because I'm not able to separate one from another. And maybe eventually there might be a connection, or maybe it's just completely two different phenomena. Maybe Bigfoot is just plain simple. It's an animal. It's just a flesh and blood thing. But this other stuff over here might be something completely different, that eventually we might find an answer for that. So that's why I listen to all of it. That, and I just find the stories fascinating. Especially when you may just not just get one story. If you get one story, you can probably just pass it off. It's just a story. But when you start getting people telling you time and time again of certain, they're seeing something, and strange things are happening, you got to pay attention to it a little bit. And like I said, but I don't know if I want to lump that into Bigfoot per se. If it's a paranormal thing, it's based on how you want to see, define the word paranormal. Yeah, if this animal that is an animal, is a flesh and blood animal, like we were talking the other day, Richard, if they go, because I don't think they live in cave systems. I think they might take refuge in some cave systems. I don't think they live in cave systems, mainly because if they did, that changed the whole dynamic of this creature. They have to have an intelligence in order to make something, whether it's fire or somehow a light source. Because when you're in zero light, unless you have some supernatural, that's what you want to call it, Richard, supernatural or paranormal, whatever, which paranormal means, for the lack of better words, in a dictionary, something that can't be explained by science. So if they do have something with their eyes that they are able to see in complete darkness, then yeah, then that way, as defined in the dictionary, they are a paranormal creature or a supernatural creature, because that's not natural. We haven't found anything else that has that ability. And like I said, again, if they are living in cave systems, they have to have some kind of intelligence to them, far beyond just your standard primate instinctive, cognitive or whatever thinking. They have to be a problem solver, and they have to know how fire works and how to start it, or something, or they'd have to figure out a way to make light. But like I said, me, I'm on the fence. I lean more toward the animal side, because they do leave evidence. You find tracks, or supposed tracks. You hear the noises, the howls, which I'll say again, the supposed noises, because I've yet to see anybody prove to me with video or anything, when we hear this, that it's a Bigfoot making that noise. If it's all intents, it could be some Yahoo out there with, moonshiner out there screaming in the woods. I don't know. But if that's them, then I think if that's what that noise is, or that the tracks are being found, then it's in the paranormal. Then it's an animal. And then there's a different part here in the Appalachian Mountains, which we have the history of the what they call the feral people. And then again, maybe that's what people are saying. Maybe they are some of these feral people that have lived in the woods and went feral. I've taken reports that actually lean towards something like that. So again, I'm still more flesh and blood than I am anything else.
Yeah, and there are a lot of reports of the feral people up in the Appalachians and
Yeah.
stuff like that. There is quite a bit of reports.
Yeah,
And they found a way to survive. They found a way
Yeah.
to survive. So
Yeah.
it's possible that a creature that's accustomed to the outdoors and living in that environment would easily survive. Because if humans can figure it out, I'm pretty sure they can.
Right.
Well, keeping an open mind like that, that's definitely, I think, the way to go. And I know a lot of people they don't want to listen to the stories, or they don't believe it, or whatever else. But, uh, and, you also have your own experience. You know that there's an other side. There's something else going on in our reality,
Right.
from your personal experience. Now, whether those things are, I'm pretty much the same way. I've had weird experiences like that too. Um, the question is, are they one and the same? I
Right.
mean, we know they both exist, but do they cross over? So I
Right.
think you've got to keep an open mind.
Well, I mean, there's a saying, when it comes to certain, like this stuff, especially like with orbs. I'm not a big orb fan. I never have been when it comes to the paranormal. But there's a saying: if the orb's in a house, it's a ghost. If the orb's in the sky, it's a UFO. And the orb's in the woods, it's a Bigfoot. People just lump it all in at one time.
Yeah.
I think I always thought that was a pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
Way.
actually really good. That's a great way to describe it.
Um, well, let me think here. What else you guys want to hear? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's most of the, Johnny's been doing this for a long time. I've been doing it a long time. You've been doing this for a long time. And in most of the information that we accumulate in the woods is anecdotal. You know what I
mhm.
mean? It's forensic. It's definitely evidence that's worth collecting and worth documenting.
Right.
Where it leads, we don't know. What it is, we don't know. But you can't deny yourself the opportunity to collect it, because you never know what's going to come down the road. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's why we do castings and videos and pictures and stuff like that, because later you'll run into somebody, they'll say, "Hey, I saw that same thing, or I had the same thing," and y'all can share information. Now all of a sudden we've got the same phenomenon going on in Florida, we have it going on in Georgia, and now we have it going on in West Virginia. It all comes together. It's just basically trying to find those bridges that
Mhm.
connect all this information together. Because like you said, we've all seen it. The FBI agent that's on that interview that said there's enough evidence of Bigfoot that he would be found guilty in a court of law.
Oh yeah.
So that means something. It at least says we're on the right direction. There is something going on out here and stuff like that. Now, is it paranormal and metaphysical or
No.
whatever? I don't know. Johnny made a great comment one time where he said, two rights can exist at the same time but have nothing to do with each other. And
Exactly.
that's so true. That is so true. And because I've heard stories where somebody will say, "Well, I saw this orb, and then half an hour later, I had a wood knock."
Right.
and they put the two together. They automatically put the orb and the woodknock together as a Bigfoot phenomenon where, okay, you had an orb, but it was a half an hour later, and how far was the woodknock? You know what I mean? So, like I said, it's until there's a bridge that connects everything together, it's all, like I said, anecdotal and speculative, and we all have our theories, you know.
Right.
But that's what makes it so much fun, is talking about these theories.
It is, and that's pretty much all. Everything is theories. I mean, you have these people out here that we know this, we know that. You know, and then if you knew this and knew that, then you can take us to where they're at. You can show us. You can, if
Right.
if you're that in tune with what they do, or you've had enough evidence to show what they, then we don't need to hunt. We don't need to search any longer. You know, you already know.
Yeah, and you hit it right on the head. You know, those people that speak in absolutes right off the bat, I mean, immediately, it's very irritating. You know, I've seen pictures, you know, that float around of a handprint, let's say on a windshield of a car. We've all seen those giant handprints. And then somebody will say, "Oh, you know, that's a Bigfoot. That's a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Look at the size of that. They're definite." See what I'm saying? But then I'll see that same picture a month or two later on a different Bigfoot site, and somebody saying it was a dog man.
Oh yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You know, all it does is it muddies the water. It really muddies the water. You know, I look at it and say, okay, it's a large handprint. That's what we have. Let's not say what it is or what it isn't. Let's just say, okay, right now, this is what we have. There are things you can do, you know, take measurements and stuff like that, you know, get a magnifying glass, look at it, see if you see dermal ridges or anything. Swab it if you want to go as far as doing DNA, because if you touched it, there's DNA there. See what I'm saying? So, you know, there's a lot more to do before you can say something as an absolute.
Right. I see, I don't have my glasses on. It says cryptid crystal. It says community can be tough because of everyone wanting clout or fame.
There is a lot of that.
There's a lot of that. And the folks that I do things with, you know, because I started another little group of the group of us. It's called West Virginia Case Bigfoot Collective. And what I stress is we don't know everything, you know, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to listen to new ideas. Share your ideas. Listen to other people's ideas. Listen to what people have, just, you know, their evidence they discovered. Don't say I know this, I know that, because you're just closing the door. You know what you have as evidence or a little bit of experience may connect with somebody else's evidence, and once them two pieces of puzzle together, then maybe you can figure something else to go to the next step. So I tell people, don't be one of those I know it all. You know, be willing to learn every step of the way. You know,
yeah, we discussed that. We were talking about that, where I think that's one of the biggest issues with researchers is they feel that they have to have all the answers, that they're the leading person and they have to have all the answers. When I do it all the time, somebody will come up and ask me something, and I'll look at them, I go, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
I'm not afraid to.
We're those are the questions that we're out there looking for. That's what we're trying to answer, but I don't know. And that's the problem with a lot of researchers is they won't say those words. They just want to give you an absolute answer on everything that you ask, and it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I'm not afraid to say it. I've told many people I have no clue. I don't know. A friend of mine was just on a podcast. You know, he's new into it. He's been doing it for a couple years, and he got invited on the podcast. And somebody in the chat asked him a question, and he didn't know the answer to it. And he messaged me after. He said, I didn't know what to do. I was like, Danny, best thing you do is like, hey, I don't know. Not everybody has the answers, you know. Don't be afraid to say that. You just say, I'm new. You know, I don't have the answers. And I told him, I said, don't be afraid to say it.
Yeah, I mean that's where the real research comes out is when somebody's open and says, look, I'm just out there looking. I'm out there trying to piece together this puzzle,
Yeah.
and right now there's a lot of pieces missing. You know,
Hmm.
and it's great we have these testimonies. It's wonderful when somebody will come forward and give their testimony. It's fantastic. But in the end, we need more. We're going to need video footage, and we're going to need, you know, I mean, I hate to say it, but in the end, we're going to need a body. I'm not going to be the one to create that or make that
Right.
happen, but what I'm saying is I do agree that if we want absolutes, then two things have to happen. And one of the things, this is what Johnny brings up quite a bit because it's never happened, is the two absolutes is one is a body or one is documented habituation, watching these creatures on a
Yeah.
constant basis,
Yeah.
learning behavior.
Long term observation.
Right.
Yep.
Because there's
Those
a
are the
lot
only
of
two absolutes.
there's a lot of claims that people make that you literally that's basically what I ask myself is what would you have to have observed in order to make that claim or to know that? Like, you may say, and I'll just kind of making this up. Like you said, you found a rock stack. You
Hmm.
may hear somebody that said, all right, well, if if you come up on a rock stack, that rock stack means
Yeah.
that this is a boundary line to keep one group of Sasquatch out from the other group. Think about all the things that you would have to witness in order to confirm that.
Right.
One, you would have to watch the Sasquatch actually make the rock stack.
Yeah.
Then you would have to see another Sasquatch that isn't from that family group walk up, see the rocks, and go, "Oh no, rocks! I can't go any further," and turn around and walk off. And then
Right.
you would have to see that, multiple times. It's just a lot of people. And I mean, you already said it, but a lot of people are just afraid to say, "I don't know." They
Yeah.
just gotta. You've got that image that you've gotta. People feel like they gotta have this image of knowing everything and being the dude or whatever. And
Right.
we don't have anywhere near enough to have a whole lot of solid answers. And last year, uh, I got really good video finally. And when I say really good video, I'm confirming the basics,
Yeah.
like rock throwing. Everybody that does this knows Sasquatch throws rocks, but how many videos of these creatures throwing rocks are there? And I got ecstatic to get a video of a rock, going by my feet. And that's literally where we're at. We're still way down here, at the bottom because we have not confirmed, you know, multiple times a lot of the claims, and that's all we have to go on is people's claims, and I believe them. And you hear so many things so often that you can pretty much kind of just accept that they're true. Like with wood knocks and rock throwing and vocalizations and stuff like that. But there's a lot of work to be done still.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well, and Crystal brings this up. Show me a Jane Goodall Bigfoot. You'll have me hook, line, and sinker. That's all of us. And
Yeah.
and it's really funny because, and I don't mind throwing names out. Because I'm at that point in doing this for so long that I'm really fed up with the BS that we hear out there, and I'll throw the name Janice Carter out there. This is somebody who says she has lived with them. She's
Mhm.
walked with them. She's held hands with them. She's been taken places with them. She's shown where they live. She's shown where they're buried. They've told her verbally their names. Well, she would be the Jane Goodall of Bigfoot, but yet she has absolutely zero proof. Zero proof. See what I'm saying? And those are the people that come in and make these outlandish, claims without any evidence or any proof whatsoever, and it muddies the water. You know what I mean? It just muddies the water. Like for her, for example, there was a time when she was at a conference, and a specific researcher I'll leave unnamed was talking with her and gave an account made up. He created it right then and there. This made up account. Okay, She turned around as she was a speaker at this conference, went up there and gave the same account, the same exact account he just told her moments before as her account. See what I'm saying? These are the people that I try to just stay away from. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't give them a platform to spread their misinformation.
Yeah, we in the little group that we have, and Three Fork Creek Outdoors. That's one of my guys there, Dave, out of Grafton, West Virginia, the home of the Grafton Monster. Um, but we call those people the Uber believers. That everything they see, everything they hear, everything that you know touch is Bigfoot, and they don't want to hear a rational explanation for it. They're like, you see that footprint? No, I don't see a footprint. You see this, this Bigfoot in the picture? No, all I see is a shadow in the trees. They just don't want to hear it, and it's a shame that we have people like that. And sometimes it's hard to navigate through those kind of people at times. But if you want to do this, you're just going to have to. You have to deal with them. You have to navigate through it. Getting to getting down to the brass tacks. If there's one, when you listen to these encounters that people tell you, you know you're going to be able to pass some of them off. As BS, misidentifications. I mean, you can listen to 100 of them, and there are going to be times that you'll look at that person and you can tell. Especially when you've done it long enough, you you can tell when somebody's reliving that encounter. You can watch their
Yeah.
body language. And if they're reliving that, like we were talking the other night, even if they're mistaken, but they don't realize they're mistaken, they're still reliving that encounter. In their mind they are. But if their encounter is 100% and they're reliving it, even if it's just one out of that 100, there's something out there, and people are seeing it.
Yeah, and I believe in the emotional aspect of it, to an extent, because I do know somebody that he can tell his encounter and cry on command, depending on who he's telling the story to, you know.
Yeah,
So, but once you get to know somebody and you spend time with them, like if you're meeting with somebody less and you're spending time, you're asking other questions other than Bigfoot
right,
because you're getting to know this person. You're
right,
starting to formulate in your mind a character, their character traits, their integrity, their whatever you're trying to. And then when you slowly move into their encounter and their description of what took place, it's a lot
yeah,
easier to determine, is this person telling me the truth or not? Because we've all been lied to. I mean, it's
yeah,
happened. I've got
Yeah.
emails from people that is absolutely lies. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And so
But
it
but you talk about the guy crying. I'd look past it, but past that from pretty much anybody. You know, it's the subtle things you look for.
right.
Watch the eyes, watch the shifting of the eyes. You can tell if they're that's a sign that they're lying. The folding of the arms you tell they're lying. Different things like that. But then you also have you see the body mannerism. I call them triggers, where you can show them something. For instance, I have these 4x4 pictures that I carry with me at all the times. It's the CGI renderings of faces that supposedly were seen by people. And when I have somebody that talks to me about um, seeing these things, I'll show the pictures almost like a police lineup. I'll actually have them go through there, pick a picture that fits what you've seen, or give me characteristics from multiple pictures and give me a mental picture. But when you show those pictures and you can see that person just they draw back or they draw in because they're reliving what they've seen, you can understand, to listen more intently. But if you lay that picture down and you got somebody who's like, oh yeah, that's it right there, they're probably BSing you right off the bat. So you kind of got to
Right.
just back away from that one. Uh, I don't know how to explain it. I don't look for the emotional side of it, like the crying, the all the I'm getting this. I you know the the other one is I'm getting goosebumps now. I'm getting into
Some
goosebumps.
people,
Yeah,
some
that's
people aren't emotional at all. It
right.
doesn't matter what they
Right.
talk about. You can't really go based on how people respond emotionally. Some people just are void of emotion in general. So
Yeah, they can be. Yeah, yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
we got about 10 minutes left. Let's get into see if there's anybody in the chat room that we got about a dozen people in there. If they have any questions that y'all want to direct towards Les or me or Johnny if you want, but if anything for Les that you want him to answer for you. Yeah, yeah, Crypto Chris, you got that right. That's the toughest thing is trying to learn, trying to navigate. That was one of the things I mention all the time is constantly on a daily basis navigating through the BS and getting to the truth. Because there's a lot of people out there that are just putting so much BS, some misinformation out there. Especially when it comes to I'll give a prime example is you get stuff like this, okay? And somebody will take this picture and say, "Oh, I found this in my grandfather's footlocker. It's got to be real because they didn't have such Photoshop back in the 1920s." Yeah, but they got AI today. See what I'm saying? And that's an AI photo all day long. See what I'm saying? And they create these photos to make it look like it's something from a long time ago. And we have to feed through this stuff to determine what's true, what's not true, you know, who's putting it out there and stuff like that. Oh, that picture go off. And that's 5 minutes on an AI program to create something that looks old, faded, and stuff like that. And people are taking this stuff and claiming that it's something that it's not.
I mean, even before AI, you had, I don't know if you've ever seen the one, supposedly it's a Bigfoot hanging from the tree that had been captured and killed, and they had it hanging by its feet. Have you ever seen that one?
I don't
yeah, I think
know.
I've seen that one.
It was just a Photoshop picture that they took. It was a bear that they photoshopped to make it look like a Bigfoot, and
Hmm.
people pass it around a lot.
Yep, Photoshop's been,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is with today is like I said with AI, I mean things are becoming so realistic. It's going to make our jobs as researchers very very difficult. I mean these deep fake videos, the deep fake ones where it's Tom Cruise talking to you and you're like, "Yeah, that's Tom Cruise in an interview." The whole interview everything is made up.
Right.
I forget his name now. There's a musician, really good music. I've downloaded some of it to my Spotify. I really like his songs. But they show him in a video on stage at um, America's Got Talent or something like that. It never existed. He was never on the show. See what I'm saying? But they show the crowd. They show him on stage. He's singing his great song. Then that never happened. See what I'm saying?
Right.
The whole song, everything is not real. And I think that's where everything's going. You're going to listen to music and see these bands, on television, and they're not even real. They don't even exist.
I see somebody ask me where I'm from. I'm in West Virginia, uh, Marion County, West Virginia. I'm actually a little town called Ida May, right below the finger. If you know what I mean by the finger in West Virginia, because we look like hand flipping somebody off. So I'm right at the base of the finger.
Uh,
That's like talking to people in Michigan. I'm in the thumb of the glove.
Yeah.
They always say that. I won't even
well,
tell you
cool,
what they
man.
say
I
Florida looks like.
enjoyed this interview. What did you
Well,
say, Richard?
Oh, I was just talking about the shape. I said I don't want to go where people say Florida looks like. I won't tell you where I live if we go with that shape.
Oh gosh.
No, it was good
Well, all right,
times.
fellas.
Good to have you, Les.
well, thank you.
Yeah, Les, I enjoyed that, man. Sound like you've done a lot of work with this, a lot of
Uh,
background.
I I'm trying. I would say that I'm
Yeah,
trying. Yeah, but as
man,
much as
that's all we
everybody
can
can.
do is try.
Yeah, yeah.
Where can they find this book at, or any of the other books?
All of them's on Amazon. Just search my name up. You'll find them all on Amazon. I
Okay,
think
good
I
deal.
think Barnes and Noble also has that one.
Okay, so
That's
just type
cool.
in search
Yeah,
Les Odell,
yeah,
and they can reach you or look at other stuff, or at least be a part of your community at West Virginia Cryptids and Strange Encounters, and that's on Facebook and YouTube.
yeah,
So good deal.
yeah. The YouTube channel is just me getting out. Nothing spectacular. There's no cinematic nonsense on there. I just get out, but either by myself with some friends. We do a bit of walking around, hiking around, seeing what we can find. Uh, I get out there with my son. My son, he's 10 years old. He does a lot with me, because he enjoys it. So why not include him? But yeah, that's you can check it
I
out.
do this. I do the same thing, except I do put in a cinematic bullcrap.
I
I had a
tried.
little
There
bit
was
of music, and I had music and stuff. So
I do like the little I do everything on my phone. So, but I tried doing the whole intro one time, and I'm like, nah, that's just not me. I just like get out there and walk and talk, and share with people, and which my wife finds kind of funny because she knows that's I'm a complete introvert. To be honest with you, I don't.
Dude, I'm right there with you, man. I've
Yeah,
said it 1,000 times. I am not a social butterfly. The fact that
yeah,
I'm on the phone at like 11 o'clock at night talking to some dude in Michigan that I don't know, or going and meeting, complete strangers out in the woods and all that. It literally took the existence of something that wasn't supposed to be real for me to do all that.
yeah,
It's actually completely out of my character. Um, I've always been I mean, I was raised an only child, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So I've never had a hard time being by myself or any of that. But once I got involved in this, it's actually, and I thoroughly enjoy it now. I enjoy meeting new people. I enjoy having the conversations and everything else. But if you would have asked me 9 years ago, or you would have told me, hey man, this is what you're going to be doing in 9 years, I told you, look, you don't know the first thing about me. Get out of my face, stranger.
right.
There's no way I would have believed it.
yeah. I'm not a big group person. I don't. I mean, I get invited to do festivals and stuff like that, and I do them, but I like the one on one with people. I like to sit and listen to their stories and talk to them. Uh, and to me, that's one of the biggest parts of doing this. Not just going out and looking for things and stuff like that. Talking to those people. I mean, we got enough time for me to tell one little thing.
Well, we got about 3 minutes because I got to
Okay, to
start
be
getting
quick.
ready for work.
The,
Everybody, I
the,
work nights now, so.
uh, a guy called me a couple years ago. Said I'm having activity on my property. He said no one believes me. He's telling me all this stuff, and I could tell he's just really upset. Kind of just beat down by what people tell him, or saying to him. So I went and I said, I'll come and talk to you. And I drove 3 hours to go talk to this man. I walked up to his property. He has a picnic table in his yard. And he goes, okay, we'll go down here and I'll show you this is where I'm this and this and that. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And he's, what do you mean? I was like, you said you needed somebody to listen to you. I drove 3 hours to come and listen to you. I sat on that picnic table for 2 hours and let that man just dump everything he wanted to say. And I never
Mhm.
looked not once around his property. And that was what he needed, for somebody to
Right.
sit there and hear him out. He didn't need somebody to say, yeah, this is happening. He knew what was going on. He knew
Hmm.
in his heart. He just needed somebody to listen to him. And
Right.
Hmm.
folks, if you get into this, that's a big part of it. It's not out there trying to prove you're right or you have the best evidence or prove that somebody's wrong. The best part is connecting with the people. When you do that, you'll find out who the true people are, who's the ones that are BSers, and you'll be happier with doing what you're doing. You'll be more confident as an investigator. You'll be it's gratifying to have people respect you and listen to you, have, want to come and talk to you.
Yep.
Well said.
And if there's anybody out there that's in West Virginia, reach out to Les, and if you want to tell your story and talk to him. If anybody wants to be on our show, Sasquatch Unredacted Podcast, please reach out to me or Johnny at sasquatchunredacted@gmail.com. You see it down at the bottom of the screen. We would absolutely love to talk to you, and if possible, have you on the show to talk about your encounters or your evidence or your research or anything like that. And just reach out to us, and we're not going to judge. We're going to give you an opportunity, like Les and everything, to tell us your point of view, tell us your story. So, thanks, Les.
Thank you.
Great to have you, man.
Yes, Les. Thanks. Good to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you. I'm sorry it drug on. I'm getting just now starting to get my second win. I started work at 5 this morning.
No, I hear you, dude. I get up I get at 3 a.m. Richard been working 7 days a week.
Yeah. It's been really, really busy, and if I'm not working, I'm usually sleeping. So, this is really my midweek break is to do the podcast. So I was up at 6:30 this morning setting up today's podcast and sending out all the information, and then went back, set my alarm to wake me up at 4:30, so that gave me 1 hour prior to having to be on and stuff like that. So busy, but I enjoy it.
When you messaged me they said you had sent the email this morning, I was already up in Pennsylvania. I was already driving.
Wow.
I'd already been to work for a while.
All right. Well,
All
I'll
right,
give
fellas,
you a call.
that was a good one.
I'll give you a call, Les, on my way to work because it'll still be early. But it was great. It was great to see you again, Johnny, and stuff, because people think we see each other every day, but we don't.
No, we don't. We both have pretty busy lives.
But we love doing what we do, and we want to continue doing it. It was good seeing you, Les, and thank you everybody that showed up today live. It was a great crowd, great group of people in the chat room, and a lot of people watching the show. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you soon. And
All right.
I will talk to you guys later.
Y'all have a good one.